So The Martian by Andy Weir. What a book. This is a book that has got all the things that makes an omnivorous reader happy. It's got science, tons of it. It's science fiction, which makes the science even better. It's got so much STEM, so much. And character, strong character, decent backup characters. It's got excellent writing, lots of humour, a person defying impossible odds and winning. It's got it all. So I'm sure that everyone knows this story. I'm quite late to this party. There was the book, then there was the movie, then there was a criticism of the movie by people who love the book, then there was a criticism of the book by the people who love the movie, and it got heated. I stayed out of it. While the awards were flowing in and the accolades were flowing in, I didn't read the book. I did watch the movie and I quite enjoyed it. Thought it was a good movie. But I didn't get to the book until recently. I got to the audiobook, more on the narration, which was excellent later. But I guess there's an irony somewhere in there that driving up to Cairns, I was reading The Last Viking, which is history, and coming back from Cairns to the Gold Coast, I was reading The Martian, which is science and the future. There you go. Anyway, so basically the story starts with 6 days into a manned mission to Mars. There is a huge dust storm. It injures Mark Watney, nearly kills him, and it forces the crew to leave Mars believing him to be dead. So Mark finds himself stranded and completely alone with no way to even signal Earth that he's alive. It was the satellite dish that actually knocked him out. And even if he could get word out, his supplies would be gone long before any rescue could come. So he is, in his own words, pretty much forked. So, yeah, the movie was really good. I don't remember a huge amount of it. I remember that he was growing potatoes for the calories, and the movie didn't go into that too much. I really loved the fact that the book did. I remember a vision of the rec room on the spaceship Hermes, which made me snicker because I don't believe anyone going into space gets that much space. It was like $1 million condo somewhere. And I remember the fact that one thing the movie did really, really well that I really liked was that the actor Matt Damon, I believe, toward the end of the movie, it portrayed very well the effects of having lived so long on such a low diet. You had all the physical wasting and the side effects. That was significantly impressive. So, but onto the book. The book is excellent science fiction at its best, with the emphasis on science. So there is a lot of Mark modifying things to survive, and a lot, but I mean a lot, huge amounts of science. There's also excellent writing. This is a debut novel. Can you believe this is a debut novel? It's so accomplished. It's amazing. Anyway, so in the book, my STEM is nowhere near enough to follow the science, technology, engineering, and math that goes into making this book apparently one of the most scientifically well-researched and believable science fiction books around. Other people have said that, not me. I'm quoting Neil deGrasse Tyson, maybe? I'm quoting someone, anyway. So, the way Andy Weir does it is Mark Watney does the math and it's given to you, but you then get the version of it that anyone can understand. So the level of, your personal level of STEM understanding doesn't really matter. I loved following along. I was fascinated by every second of it. Even if I didn't understand every second of it, that was fine because the take-home message was given to you at the end anyway. The enthusiasm of the narrator in this audiobook was what really made the science zing, though. It's infectious. Even one can't understand the details. It's clear that other people can, and that he makes it exciting. So the details of the application of Boyle's law on bubbles through a superheated water or whatever, it wasn't that, but every single explanation while you're listening to it makes sense. I don't necessarily remember them. If I am ever marooned on Mars in similar circumstances, I am not a chance. Anyway. So science, stupendous, intimidating, delightful. But in many regards, the science is almost irrelevant. It's the major portion of the book. I don't think you will enjoy this book unless you enjoy hearing about science. But you follow along the science and it's enjoyable, but it is, at the end of the day, the story of one man's attempt to survive against the odds. And the character of Mark Watney is what draws us in, and his humour and inventiveness and his little tantrums and his log entries are what keep you going throughout the story. And the characterization is good. Mark Watney has a very vivid character, and that is absolutely going to be a make or break part of the narrative for this book, because if you like Mark, you are going to like this book. And if you find his humour over the top or too much or unlikable, you don't really have any chance, even if you enjoy the science. It's delivered through the filter of Mark Watney's character, and that's so prevalent, I don't think you'll enjoy this book. There is something that the book can do, which the movie never did, was explain away Mark's character, because he's got an effusive, over-the-top, boisterous, positive, humourful character. And you don't meet many people like that. But in the book, though not in the movie, I believe, it goes into the bit of the psychology of putting together a team. And the fact is that Mark's over-the-top enthusiasm is part of the reason why he's actually on that team, because the psychology of the team of scientists going to Mars was important to the mission. There are some humorous personal touches, such as Mark Watney being sentenced to listen to disco music and watching 70s TV shows because that's all he could find on the computers that were left behind by the other crew members. I noticed that among the 70s movie TV shows, there was no MacGyver. I feel like MacGyver and Mark Watney would have been a perfect match for this book. Why Three's Company, but not MacGyver? Missed opportunity there, Andy Weir. Do it another time. Yes, okay, so of all the science that I couldn't follow, the science that I could follow was the botany. And there's more of that in the book than there is in the movie. So Mark Watney's love-hate affair with potato growing in order to keep him alive for the time until he manages to achieve rescue is really interesting. His methods of propagation, his discussion of soil creation, I really loved that. I could follow it. It was fascinating. So Mark's ingenuity, engineering skills, and relentless upbeat persona are the basis for his dogged refusal to give up. I have heard this book criticised as being very repetitious, and in a sense it is. The narrative is repetitious. You've got Mark and his ingenuity and enthusiasm. He encounters a problem, he sciences through it, on, all good. Oh, wait, there's another problem. I've got to science the hell out of this. I've done it. I'm ingenious and I never give up. Oh wait, here's another problem. And it does keep going like that. It is a little bit of a production line of problems applicable to Mars and zero gravity, but I think that anyone who's read this book will have a whole new understanding of the fact of a planet like Mars, which is basically vacuum and with low gravity and all the other things about it. So I love the personality and I love the ingenuity. The book certainly does score over the movie in terms of explaining away the almost pathologically upbeat personality of Mark Watney. And I also found it interesting, this is an aside to the actual novel, is how similar this is in core elements to a horror story. So I think Alfred Hitchcock I once read as saying that all you need in order to create a good horror story is a likable personality or personalities put in an isolated circumstance with bad things happening, but a possibility, always a possibility, of surviving. So in every regard, this should be a horror story, but instead it's a thriller. It's definitely a thriller. The book is paced in such a way that it really worked. So it starts on day 6 when Mark Watney finds himself on Mars and the crew have left. And for the first part, it felt like about a third of the book. It's basically his log, Sol, as in day, Sol 6, Sol 7, etc., up into the hundreds. It's about the time when the Dear Diary approach to book writing starts to get wearisome is when we skip back to Earth and they realize that he's alive but with no way to contact him. He meanwhile believes that they don't know he's alive and has no way to contact them. So that's good. Then you've got a center part of the book where they do actually communicate, and that gives the whole story a completely different dynamic. Later you have the dynamic of the crew of the Hermes, they're heading back to Earth, brought in on it, and you get a lot of the interpolitics of the mission back director and group back on Earth, as well as Mark Watney continues solving unsolvable solutions on Mars. And you've got the crew of the Hermes who have to face the fact that they left a crew member behind on Mars to almost certain death. But wait, does he die? No, we all know he doesn't die. We all know there's a happy ending to this story. The way it's achieved, though, is so exciting that the fact that you know the ending really doesn't matter at all. So yes, I love this book. Finally, an award winner that deserved to win awards. Yay. Now finally, the narration. The narration was utterly perfect. It had to be an audiobook for me because it's a long one, and I had, 3 days worth of driving, 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers, something like that worth of driving. I needed an audiobook that would see me through. That did a perfect job. When the audiobook first opened up and it told me it was narrated by Will Wheaton, I thought, that's vaguely familiar. Is that a character who is in the actual... Was that an actor who is actually in the movie? Where do I know that name from? And then I forgot about it, because there was an awful lot of Australian highway and an awful lot of dry eucalypt trees to distract me from who was narrating. And slowly, not that slowly actually, the narrator became Mark Watney for me. The infectious enthusiasm of the narrator totally matched the infectious enthusiasm of the character, and both suited the book. So even when you're listening to science, which you are not following at all, because that's me and maths. I do not follow maths unless they're statistics, really. The enthusiasm of the narrator completely tides you through. And it was only after I'd finished the book and was chatting with my sister about it did she point out that Will Wheaton was actually the actor who played Wesley Crusher in Star Trek The Next Generation. And apparently he's a huge science nerd, so his enthusiasm wasn't acting, it was simulated, he was actually enthusiastic. I think that came through quite nicely. So yes, this is a near perfect modern science fiction book. The level of science is amazing. The element of fiction works well. The characterization, the pacing of the story, the huge amount of science so well done. It's an exciting and wonderful book. If you haven't read it and you feel that you will struggle with the science, I would say get yourself a long road trip in Australia or elsewhere and get yourself the audiobook and let Wesley Crusher tell you all about how to science on Mars. It was excellent. Try it. Or watch the movie again. The movie, I seem to remember, was pretty good. I don't think it was as strong on science, though. So if you want the science, watch the movie, then read the book. Yes, you may never feel the same way about potatoes again, but read the book.